Hey everyone, I'm coming to you from the back roads of Eastern Washington somewhere. and I finally got good enough service to stream, so I'm doing it live right now while I can. I've had a lot of time to think about our passage for today, our chapters for today, Hebrews 7 through 11. Man, I'll just tell you what, there is these chapters are what I would call just theologically rich. Like there is just a lot in these things that just is quite amazing. First off, what happens is the author of Hebrews is comparing Jesus to Melchizedek, which is just a guy that was back had an encounter with Abraham, and just making sure that guy wasn't going to pull over. He had an encounter with Abraham, and Melchizedek is this interesting character that we don't know a lot about, except for this one encounter with Abraham. And what we do know about him is that he is both priest and a king. So he's both, and from this place called Salem. So we don't know how he got to Abraham. We don't know. There's so many questions about Melchizedek. But what the author of Hebrews does is talks about how great Melchizedek was and how Jesus is even greater. And he's building this case here for for how great Jesus is. And ultimately, what he's doing is saying that what Jesus has done is greater than what anyone else could do. And he goes into talk about the tabernacle and the temple and the old sacrificial system. And for us today, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It's foreign to our concept, but to the Hebrews, to who this writer was writing to, this would have been like right in their wheelhouse. They would have been picking up on this, and it would have been just really good for them to hear. But what's so amazing is at the end of all these comparisons and all these things that the Hebrews would have known about, we see what the Hebrews author is doing. And he is basically not only making a case for how great Jesus is, but he's saying that Jesus's sacrifice Jesus's death, what paid the penalty. His one death paid the penalty for many. And we hear this in church a lot. But I think it's important that we really take it to heart. I mean, this is the core of the gospel, that Jesus died for our sins, that his one sacrifice covers us. And so in chapter 10, the author continues to build this case for Jesus's great sacrifice. And I believe the culmination of it comes in verse 14 of chapter 10, where it says that by his one act, of course, I am going to, I'm not going to nail it here, but the author is saying basically by Jesus's one act, he made perfect, forever perfect, those who are being made holy. And what he articulates there is this amazing tension that you and I have to live in once we come to Jesus. It's this idea that Jesus died for my sins. And so when I come before God, because of Jesus, he sees me as perfect. He sees me as the spotless lamb. Jesus took my place. His blood covers my sin. And I get off scot-free because Jesus was willing to do that. That, my friends, is what we call in the theological world justification, that we have been justified. We have been made perfect. Now, we're not perfect, and so this is the great tension, because before God, we are seen as perfect, but We're not perfect. We're still sinful. And that's what the author meant when he said that God forever made perfect those who are being made holy. And so we've been justified before God. We're perfect before him through Jesus Christ. But we're still being made holy. So we're justified, but we're also being sanctified. Another big church word, which means that Jesus is working on us. That we're trying to be more like him, that we're trying to grow, we're trying to allow him to have more of our hearts, more of our minds, more of all that we are so that we can become more like him. We know we're not perfect, but through Jesus, we, in God's sight, we are. And so here, this is the takeaway from this section, is that if you are living with guilt, if you're frustrated over sin, over the way that you're living, over the mistakes that you've made, don't be. The amazing thing about God's grace is that we're justified in his sight, that we are seen as perfect. And it doesn't make sense to us. It's hard for us to grasp, but that's the way that it is. We've been justified, but we're also still being sanctified. And that means that Jesus is continuing to work on our hearts and our minds, continuing to clean us out and make us more like him. Now, the author ends chapter 10 by basically giving a call to perseverance. And what this is kind of just, again, after 10:14, that's kind of the culmination of that whole argument of how great Jesus is. And the author basically goes from there and says, listen, so you need to live with perseverance. You need to live with faith. And you need to not forsake or not forget to meet together so you can encourage one another and you can be in each other's lives and you can help. He also says, he ends with one last kind of powerful statement in my mind. He says, do you remember what it was like when you first came to know Jesus? Do you remember what it felt like? How excited you were, how faithful you were, how passionate you were? He said, I want you to get back to that. I want your faith to be renewed. You know, and he uses the example with the Hebrews. You didn't care about suffering. You didn't care about any of that stuff. And this is, I think, our takeaway for this little section here right now. That if 2020 has really gotten to you, and it's affected you spiritually, if you're frustrated, if you're, whatever it might be, go back to when Jesus, the greatest time in your life that you had with Jesus, when you were most passionate, not complacent, but passionate, when you were so thankful and so energized by his thought and his sacrifice. Take your mind back there, take your emotions back there, and get that back. Let's end 2020 with a bang. Let's end it on a spiritual high, knowing and rejoicing in what Jesus has done for us, that his one sacrifice paid the penalty for our sins. I love you all. I hope you're having a wonderful day. And that's all I got for now. If you haven't read Hebrews 7 through 10, get on it, people. All right. Hope you have a great evening.